Go ahead, Henry.
This is the Oregon City Transportation Advisory Committee meeting for March 16th, 2021. And would you please call the roll, Kim?
Yes, Mr. LaSalle,
Here.
Mr. McEnroth,
Here.
Mr. Morgan,
Here.
Mr. Atkinson,
Here.
Mr. Simmons,
Here.
and Chetamir said that he was going to try to make it, and I did not hear back from Tim West. So I think this is all we've got for right now.
Then we should check with the minutes, I should think.
Yeah, and those are the minutes from, since we didn't have our meeting last month, January 19th.
I have a couple of items for that.
Okay,
Page 1, the last sentence. Henry McEnroth nominated Chetamir Jessic for another term and vice chair. I think that should be as vice chair.
okay,
And then on page 2, the first paragraph goes on, and then the second line of the first paragraph says community survey from 2018 and 2020. Are those years correct?
yes.
Oh, okay. And then I'd like to know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth paragraph down, Mr. Atkinson said whether, and it goes on to say, it says DEI. What is DEI?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Maybe we should, oh, I see. That's, oh, okay.
Spell it out instead of making an acronym. It's probably
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, oh, it spells it out right there before that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay,
Any other comments? A move to accept?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Any, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Well, let's move on to the citizen comment.
okay, we do have one. I'm going to ask for you to unmute, Savannah.
All right. Hello.
Hi, just state your city of residence and your name.
Great. My
And then
name
you'll
is
have 3 minutes. Sorry.
okay. No worries. My name is Savannah Ovaldia, and I currently reside in the historic district of Oregon City. And I'll just jump right in. I want to thank everyone for affording me this time to tell you about my recent experience at the Oregon City Transit Center. A couple weeks ago, I decided to take the bus after work, after taking the 33, and I began to feel unsafe while waiting because my immediate area became very dark. And as the streetlights came on, it did not alleviate my concerns. Standing there, I began to question, should I just turn around and go back home? But being transit dependent, there is no other option for myself. I had to stay, and I had to, toughen up and just stand there in the dark. But as I boarded the bus, I asked myself, how can we ensure that no other person is subjected to this unsafe environment? So I'm here to ask all of you, who is responsible to revamp the present environment of the transit center being dark and unwelcoming and a place a lot of people tend to avoid? And how can we transition the transit center into an attraction, a hub of information for public assistance when it comes to taking the buses? I want to see and work and understand how, as a city, we can work with community partners such as TriMet and PGE and the local business owners to redirect the attitude that people have towards the transit center. And as summer approaches and more people can get outside, I think that this will be a present issue coming. So what is the future for the transit center, and how fast is the future approaching? And are we going to wait until something possibly happens to a person to then implement change? Thank you.
John, before you answer, I'd like to ask a question, which is, which bus were you waiting to get onto?
Yeah, I was waiting to
They all
get
have
on.
the same places.
Yeah, the 33 going towards Clackamas Community College on my way to Winco.
So 33
Correct.
is the one you're looking for. Okay, thank you.
Thank
John,
you.
I think this is in more your bailiwick more than any others.
Thank you, Henry. Savannah, thank you for bringing this to the Transportation Advisory Committee. We had, I want to say, and Timothy, you might remember, you were concerned about street lighting
Yes.
in a variety of places around Oregon City. I think we talked about that either 1 or 2 meetings ago. And so that there's the street lighting issue, which I think is an interesting one. But I think what you described to me sounded beyond street lighting. It was more like the place, right? The place has got kind of a connotation. I think that we're seeing more and more kind of transit hanging there, and it needs an update, right? It's been there for, I don't remember when they built the transit center. Henry, you might remember that better than I do, but it's been there for probably 25 years as it sits, somewhere in that range, and it's dated. Interestingly enough, TriMet is looking pretty hard at Oregon City for additional changes to the transit center. Right now, they've got a lot of buses coming in there. We're gonna have the Oregon City shuttle, and we've got Smart proposing routes that would stop in Oregon City and from Wilsonville. So our transit center location, there's not a proposal to move it, but there does look like TriMet is looking at some significant investment. I don't have a timeline for you right now, Savannah. They're talking about a lot of the transit dollars that are kind of focused on these kind of improvements that could be pointed at Oregon City. And of course, Oregon City's a pretty busy transit center, and it's small. So just some of the layover that they've established at the community college, that transit center, which you also sounded like was your destination, that's been a tremendous improvement, but a lot of the buses don't go there, right? The 33 goes there, and then I think they lay over there more than they do downtown, but just layover opportunities at the transit center in downtown is limited because there's not a lot of parking there for them. So I think they have some new ideas. I wouldn't say because the area that they can do it in, I think they'd like to do more if they had more area there, but I think they've got good improvements that would include better illumination, amenities that might be a little different than what they have there now. And I just don't have the timeline for that to share with you, but more to come on that. And you can definitely call me and I can put you in. Dana Webb has actually been the staff person who's been, she tends to go to most of their coordination meetings with TriMet. So we do have a liaison with TriMet, and we're pretty active with them. And
Okay.
yeah, so it's a busy location. It definitely is, but I'm sure there's times at night when it doesn't feel safe because there's dark spots, especially on the wet, cold nights, less travelers.
Is it correct to assume, John, that the infrastructure there is a TriMet operated, TriMet fixed? So it's something that maybe we need to have Dana pose the question to Metro or TriMet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
And
don't.
sorry, I was just wondering, am I able to respond or am I done?
No, you can.
Okay, great. So I was in contact with Jason, I believed, and he mentioned that they're having some issues with streetlights being torn down or removed. And I'm just curious, because it's such a overlapping area with PGE with the streetlights and TriMet owning the center, but it's on Oregon City property. How can we start? I think the streetlights is a great place to start, and then working with TriMet further on to develop a better layout for the transit center is definitely something I'd be interested in.
Is there a light that's not functioning?
There are present lights, but it's almost as if the globes are oxidized and it's just very dim. And it's not your natural street poles. They're more like TriMet, small black poles with just globes.
Yeah, I think those are the acorn style lights. I want to say some belong to the city, some belong to TriMet. It's been a while since I've looked at that, but there's kind of a mixture down there. We are doing LED replacements of those acorns. Can't recall how we've been, Vance, do you recall how we're doing on the transit center area? I know we've been working along various places along Washington Street, but, and I know the train station, we've been working there, but I'm not sure about around the transit center.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that we've done anything recently at the transit center. Train station, yes, and further down Main, more into the core downtown area. A lot of those are LEDs, but they are nearing the end of their life. They're changing colors and not in a good way. I believe we do have some older high pressure sodium fixtures still on Main. When those go out, we do replace them with the LED. And I was just trying to pull up on Google Maps. I think TriMet might have some smaller lights within their transit center too that Savannah may be mentioning. But that's something that we're happy to look at to see are they LEDs currently, and if they're not, what's it look like to get them swapped out?
Okay.
Are the lights on the building itself TriMets?
Yeah.
So the only city lights would be the normal street lights along the sidewalk?
That's correct.
If I can answer that, from where I sit, I'm looking at the transit center. There are 5 acorn lights, 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, and 1 at the very end. And there may be lights on the buildings. I can't see it from here.
You're pretty handy to have around, Tim, when we're talking about the transit center. Thank you.
Advanced recon there.
That's right.
Savannah, the light thing, Jason is the right guy to talk to, but he works under Vance, so Vance we can bird dog that a little bit to make sure the right, that's the wrong term. We can look into that and sorry for my slang. We can look into that and see what we can do to look at just those kind of changes are relatively simple to do, and you raising them is the kind of thing we get pretty regularly.
And any other questions?
I was just going to ask from a security standpoint. I know TriMet has some security people. I know there's transit police that are patrolling. Does Oregon City Police also put the transit center on its route of checking in, or do they rely on the transit police and the TriMet security staff?
Transit police are there. I saw them just the other evening. There's 2 of them, 2 police cars parked in the transit center or near the transit center, and they were on the site just kind of hanging out. So I don't know what their schedule is, but I noticed them.
I was there during the day the other day. I drove by and there was security, there was TriMet personnel, there was transit police, there was a lot, but I'm wondering if that holds true in the nighttime hours, like she was discussing, that, does it change radically once it goes dark?
I just made a note, Ben, and I'm happy to reach out to the PD and ask them that question.
Okay.
Slightly on a little side thing, would any of those people down there be waiting to go into one of the neighborhood establishments across the street, the probation office?
Probably not during the nighttime hours, I wouldn't guess.
No, but during the day, I would think so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Savannah. You're welcome to hang out, or if you want to sign off, that's okay too.
Thank you, and we should move on now to
And Henry froze
Katie?
up on us here.
Uh-oh.
Kim.
Rose up, Henry. So,
Anybody?
well, the traffic, I'll just briefly talk about the traffic safety issue that's
Oh.
part of the agenda. The person that was going to present it I actually spoke to her on the phone last month before our meeting, and her concerns were more on private property. I guess there's some limited views on some private drive. And so I let her know that there wouldn't be a whole lot that we could do about, putting a mirror on a private drive. She also was concerned with some bushes. I think it's in the packet at the intersection of Squire and Myers. Code enforcement did go out there and do a site distance check, and apparently it's fine. So like I said, I reached out to her to see if she wanted to still come and present her concerns, and she never got back to me. So with that said, Katie, I will make you the co-host and you can have at it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chair McEnroth and the TAC committee members. Let me get my screen up here so you can see it. All right. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of what we will discuss today. So first, we're going to go over the fact that the city has a boards and committees orientation manual and where that's located if you didn't know that. The public meetings laws in Oregon, the public records laws in Oregon, policies, procedures, and protocols, and then the use of city facilities and technology. So first, I want to say thank you to all of you members. I know that you are volunteers. I know that this takes up a lot of your time. I know that you're passionate about Oregon City. That's why you're doing this. And I want to first and foremost, thank you for being a part of this committee. Thank you for taking the time and energy and making Oregon City the best city possible with your input and your volunteerism. So thank you very much. Second, yes, the city of Oregon City does have a boards and committees orientation manual. And some of you are, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 terms in on different boards and committees. And so you probably know this better than I do. And you probably know it by the back of your hand. But for those of you who are new members, or maybe if you have served for many years and didn't know that there was a boards and committees orientation manual, now is the time to get informed of that and to locate that on our website, and then also to find out what's in there that you've been missing this whole time. So I'm going to take the time to stop my share here with my presentation. I'm going to take you to the city's website. And if you're on the city's website and you go to the government, you hover over government and you click on this boards and committees, this takes you typically to where there are applications to serve on a board or committee. But if you continue to scroll down, there's a section here that says the orientation manual. And if you click on that, it takes you in to the manual and you can click on the table of contents, each section one by one, or if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a PDF version of the manual as well. So you can pull it up at once, or you can pull up just specific sections that you're looking for. This has a lot of very important information in it that talks about the form of government. It talks about your relationship with the city commission, all the various boards and committees and appointments. And now I will bring you back to my presentation here. And why do you need to know this? Obviously, because you are serving on this board or committee, and it is an advisory committee to the city commission and a part of the city. So therefore, we hope you are aware of all of the things that the city commission and the city in general would like you to be aware of. One of the things is the public meetings laws in Oregon. Oregon does have a specific public meetings law. It's ORS 192.630. And what exactly is a public meeting? Public meeting is really any time that a governing body is getting together to discuss city business. It doesn't necessarily have to have a quorum, but an official public meeting is when there is a quorum. And so if you didn't have a quorum, you could potentially have a work session, but you wouldn't be voting on anything, and nothing would actually be determined as an official determination of the body itself. So to have an actual public meeting, you would need to have a quorum of your governing body. And as you guys are an advisory committee, you're still considered a governing body under the Oregon state law. So when you have a public meeting, some of the things that you need to do are hold it in a facility that's ADA compliant, or allow folks to participate via this Zoom virtual meeting, or watch it on our YouTube. Make sure that you've provided public notice. So you have posted the agenda and you've sent it out to various interested parties. You've also, we at the city posted in 3 different locations within the city. So we posted at City Hall, we posted at the library, and then we also posted at the Pioneer Community Center. But we also posted in other locations as well. So the Building and Planning Department posts our agendas, and a couple other folks will post our agendas. I know that there's oftentimes the Oregon City Chamber will send out a notice saying that there's certain meetings. So the word gets out. That's also posted on our website. And let's see here. Can public meetings be conducted via phone or electronic means? Absolutely. We're doing that right now with the virtual meetings. Also, if say there was a member that couldn't participate virtually, but they wanted to, or electronically, I guess I should say, but they wanted to call into the meeting. If they're able to listen to the information on the meeting, they can definitely participate. But there is a slippery slope on this as well. That also means that technically you can conduct a meeting via email. And that isn't something that we want to have happen, because that isn't out in the public. That wouldn't have been a notice that had been provided to the public, and public wouldn't have the opportunity to weigh in on whatever it is that's being discussed. So there's also things called serial meetings, such as if for some reason something came up and one member went to either a staff person or another member of the committee and said, well, I've talked to, let's just say Jimmy Joe, and I've talked to Sally Sue, and both of them don't support this position that I want to bring forward. Let's say it's a specific item that's already been discussed at a meeting, and they plan on voting no on this. What do you think? The fact that they told you that 2 other members have already discussed it with them, and the fact that they told you what that person is going to vote, has now made this a serial meeting. It could be just a conversation, it could be in an email, it could be any which direction, but now you're having a meeting because you have, you know, a quorum of the body, potentially, if your quorum was 3 or more, and or less, sorry, 3 or less, and you've decided that you've told the person which direction each member was going to vote, then you're holding a serial meeting, even though each of the members didn't talk at the same time in the same group. So I hope that makes sense. It's very confusing, but that's potentially a serial meeting. So there's several other ways to have meetings. They're just not allowed under the law. So we want to be careful in some of the things that we're doing or saying, or the way that we're conducting ourselves outside of a regular public meeting, because we don't want to potentially hold a meeting and not realize that we're holding a meeting. Also, there are exceptions for times that you're taking a tour, or that you're going to, there's sometimes charrettes that are being held. So like a design charrette or something, or there's an open house. If there's a quorum of you at that open house at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a meeting. And there are exceptions to the law for things such as that you don't have to be concerned about. So there are some exceptions. And then can members of the public be excluded from a public meeting? Technically, no, they can't be excluded from a public meeting, but there are times when members of the public could be excluded. For example, there might be a time that you're going to hold an executive session where something that is covered under the law to be held in an executive session. The only folks that are allowed to attend an executive session would be members of the media who are already registered with the city, and obviously the members of the committee. So general public would not be allowed in an executive session. Are there any questions on the public meetings law in general? Because I'm going very vague in overview because it gets very sticky if you get too deep on that. All right, so we will go on to public records law. So what is a public record? That also can get pretty interesting when you're trying to figure out what is a public record. Basically anything, there are very few exceptions, and Oregon is a state that is more prone to be everything be releasable than things being exempt. So you have to think that anything that you're writing, saying in the meeting could potentially be a record, a public record, if it has to do with city business. So if you are writing an email and you're discussing with your committee members just scheduling conflict, or you're talking about that you have something going on and you can't attend the next meeting, those types of transient or transial, or however you want to say that type of correspondence that's not necessarily a public record. But if you start to discuss things that potentially your board or committee might want to talk about in the future, or maybe it's something that you're currently talking about, and you start to discuss that outside of the public meeting, that is a public record. So that's disclosable. And it's subject to the law, and it is your responsibility to keep that record. And most of the time you're using your personal email, and yes, your personal email can be a public record. Depends on what the content of the email is. And most of the time, I honestly, rule of thumb is anytime you're corresponding regarding city business, CC your staff liaison. As long as you have I assume Kim is your staff liaison, as long as you have her in the loop for everything, there is no concern there. Because if for some reason something were to come up, if she were to see something that like maybe she was concerned about, or something like that, she could go ahead and step in at that time and tell you either regarding the public meetings laws or the public records laws. And she could say, hey, let's take a time out here, or hey, this is something we should be talking about at a regular public meeting and not via email. So that's always a good rule of thumb. That's what I recommend for most boards or committees. And I see that Mr. West has a question.
I do have a question. Thank you. And this is a two-part question. One, is a telephone call a public record? And then is a telephone message left a message with some city official, is that a public record?
That is a very good question. So a telephone call is in a conversation over the telephone with one other individual or potentially more, is not necessarily a public record. It's what you may have written down, or any kind of notes you took during that conversation could potentially be a public record. But the telephone call conversation itself is not a public record. It's, unless you were recording it or something, there's no physical record there to manage. It's the information in your head, and that you would probably share then at the next meeting or with someone else. The actual voicemail message that you leave a public official, most of the time they're going to say the law says no, it's not technically a public record. What would become a public record is if the person listening to that message wrote notes, took down notes regarding that message. That would be the public record. Also, if there are programs out there that can translate your voicemails into a text format and send it to you in an email or some other form, and that would be a physical public record. And it looks like Mr. Atkinson.
I have a question regarding something you said earlier with the CCing, staff members from the city. In the past, I've, separated, like when I'm doing agenda topics, deciding what to be on an agenda, I usually just email people on committee and not include city employees on an email because I want to make sure that I'm not being public record. And so does just emailing my committee members and not including city staff on it prevent me from getting any public records issue, or does not matter who I include on the email?
It doesn't matter. It's still a public record, and potentially if you are emailing your other committee members and not including your staff liaison, you could potentially be having a meeting and not even realize it.
Okay, thanks for that
So
clarification.
so anytime anyone, I'm not sure, I was just trying to look right before I got on here. I was trying to look at your guys' bylaws. I'm not sure if there's something in there that specifically states how someone on this committee should bring up future agenda items. But typically that's something that you'll want to talk with your staff liaisons, or if it's in the bylaws on how you should bring up future agenda topics. Like if one committee member is interested in something, they could list something out, excuse me. And if the rest of if there isn't a majority support for that particular item, then that item dies and doesn't come back before the committee. If there's a majority support of, yeah, we'd like to hear more about that, or yeah, we'd like to discuss that at a future agenda item, then it's something that you would put on for maybe the next agenda or a future one, depending upon how much research by staff would need to be done. So yeah, always great questions. Best rule of thumb, definitely always include your staff liaison. Definitely always ask the staff liaison if you have any questions, or feel free to email me directly. I put here the Attorney General's Public Records Meeting Manual. There's a website there. They have a new 2018 meeting manual. And I actually was going to stop and show you it really quick. I would provide it to you, but I realized that it is roughly 400 and some pages long, 426 pages long. And you obviously don't have to read this whole thing. It is just a very good guide. So if you're ever wondering or you ever have questions, feel free to go to this guide and just do a function F for find and do a search of something that you're looking for in it. And it's definitely very helpful. That can be very good for you to take a look and answer a lot of questions that you might have there. And let me move on to the next section here. It's just basically about policies, procedures, and protocols. So we've already talked about one of the things or actually a couple things I was already going to mention was just making sure to include your staff liaisons in any correspondence via email, finding out how your particular committee wants you to raise future agenda items and how you can put those on for discussion. Also talking about a member's authority. So as an individual member of the Transportation Advisory Committee, unless the committee has asked you to do something or has provided you with the authority to do something, if you go out and do something on your own, that is you as an individual. That's not you as the Transportation Advisory Committee member. So you really shouldn't use your title in times where, for example, if you went before the city commission because you had a concern about something and you said, hi, I'm Katie Riggs. I'm a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee, and we've been discussing this. That could get very unclear to the city commission if you're coming on behalf of the Transportation Advisory Committee, or if you're coming on behalf of yourself because you're concerned about something. Yes, you might sit on the Transportation Advisory Committee, and yes, it might be something that you're talking about, but unless the committee itself has given you the authority to go before the city commission and present something, you probably shouldn't be using your title as a part of your statement. You should be making it very clear that you're coming before them as an individual, not as a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee. Are any questions about that one?
I just have one clarifying, just like, because I don't know if you were served, but I work on the downtown TDM working group, and I think I represent the tech on that. And I think I was appointed by a tech to be on that committee. And so do I say me representing my viewpoints, or do I say I am, representing the tech on that downtown group? So I'm just curious about how I should approach that group about that situation.
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, if the Transportation Advisory Committee appointed you to that, or had a vote of some sort, or nominated you for that committee, then therefore they've provided you the authority to be a liaison on that committee. But just remember that what you're voicing is a voice of the committee, not necessarily as an individual. I mean, you might be giving both at some times, but there's going to be times where you're going to need to come back to the committee and you're going to need to say, hey, committee fellow members, this is what we're talking about. They're asking for our input here, and I want to make sure that I'm getting the input of the committee and not just my individual viewpoints or concerns.
That's great. Thank you.
Katie, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So let's say we have a citizen that has an issue with the neighborhood and wants to put in a traffic hump or some kind of thing in there, and we see the information that comes in the pre-meeting, and I decide, let's say I'm going to go down and see the neighborhood to see what it is, so I'm better prepared. And let's say a resident of the area approaches me and asks me what I'm doing, and I tell them I'm fact gathering about the problem that you guys have here that's come from the commission. Is that considered a public meeting?
No, what you're doing is you're obviously doing your research. You're gathering, you're finding out information, you're taking a look at the concerns, and you're making yourself more educated and aware of the situation before you actually come to the meeting and have a discussion about it. It might be something where you say, there might be a time in the meeting where you say, well, I drove down there and I took a look, and when I was there, I talked to these few neighbors, and this is something they said. Well, then that would be then part of the meeting, and that would get on the record as
Sure.
that you had these conversations with these folks. You don't have to disclose that, but if it was some sort of valuable input, or it was something that helped make a decision in your mind, then you'd probably want to include that, in the discussion, so that the other folks know where you're coming from.
Right. So we can speak to the citizens up there who may have an issue and not have to be fearing of it's a public meeting, when we're just trying to get their point, what their issue is, and be able to have better insight for the meeting.
Yeah, no, you don't have to consider that a public meeting. No, it's the rest of your governing body, the rest of your TAC members are not a part of that conversation at that time, so there's no public meeting there.
Okay, great. Thanks for the clarification.
And Katie, I apologize if I'm doubling up. I lost my connection, so I jumped back on my phone as quick as I could. So I may have missed this. If we're speaking to staff and we have general questions about process, or maybe it's about a specific situation, are those things that we need, are those considered part of the public record as well? I don't know if that was covered already.
Oh, no, that's a great question. Typically that is would not be something that I would include in the public record as far as the agenda packet information. If it's just procedural, or you just have a couple questions, no, it's still, if you're doing it via email, those emails are public record, and so they would just need to be retained. But if you're corresponding with staff, the staff person can retain those records for you. It's typically if there's no staff ever involved in any of the emails that you're, maybe you're corresponding with just a citizen on the street, and you're, as Mr. Morgan was saying, you're just finding out information. The information that you're corresponding via email with that citizen, that could be potentially a city public record, but you won't know until you continue down that road and hear the discussion by the TAC members. You just don't want to delete the email right away until you've, understand where it falls in the scheme of a public record.
Yep, thank you.
Katie, I had a statement to make about that. I've addressed issues before the planning commission and the city commission in the past, and what I usually do, if appropriate, is say, for example, I'm a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee and such subject came up. I'd like to discuss or ask some questions about that. However, me speaking this evening is not as a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee. It's strictly as a private citizen. Would that be suffice?
Yeah, as long as you state that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on a little bit here. I think that's most of my protocols and stuff. The city commission does have specific policies and rules of procedure that they follow. And most of them, they typically ask that the boards or committees follow some of those as well. Just basically some of the things I already said, following public meetings laws, following public records laws, making sure that you're doing meeting minutes, making sure that you're as a body reviewing them and approving them, which it looks like from the beginning of this meeting, you clearly are doing that. So that's great. We also like to make sure that we're getting those posted on our website. And I just want to take you to our website and show you two more things on our website here. If you are located on our homepage of our website, you can see right here is the agendas, videos link. And if you go there, you can put in information if you want to search, but basically you can see that there's agendas, packets, minutes, and videos for boards and committees. And as you go down, you want to make sure that you see all of your boards and committees are putting up their meeting minutes, their packets, and their videos. And I know that Bob is really good about this. So let's help all of our boards and committees make sure to bring forward their meeting minutes and get them approved and get those posted to our website so that folks can stay up on what's going on with various boards and committees. The other item I wanted to point out was if you are on our website and you go to this how do I and you go under the request public record, if there's ever a time where a citizen comes to you, or if you are ever interested in something, some sort of record from the city and you want to see what that looks like, or you want some information from the city, feel free to submit a public records request. You can do this a variety of different ways. You can submit it online. You can read through the materials here and you can download the form and fill it out and email it to me. But of course, the easiest way is just to go to the link online and you read through it. It just tells you about all the information on if there's any charges for anything. The first 30 minutes of staff time is free. So if we can provide the record for you within the first 30 minutes, that is a free, and usually if it's an electronic record, that's free as well. So we would just send that to you via email. But if for some reason you want a hard copy, then we would have to charge you just for the copy. But other than that, it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. The only other thing I can think of is besides folks who are interested in information, there's also those folks who do have requests or complaints for the city, and feel free to direct them to our website. There's always a place on our website that they can submit a request. An OC request is available to them. They can click on the link or find the information on our website where they can go and say, I have a complaint about this particular thing. Maybe it's a traffic complaint, maybe it's a park and recreation or a code enforcement. They can fill it out, a nuisance, and submit it, and the city will be able to track their request. They'll be able to track their request, and they'll get responses from the appropriate departments when needed. So please don't always feel like you have to be the one to answer everyone's questions. Feel free to utilize our website and our staff, direct folks to the appropriate places. We try to help do that, and we ask any of our volunteers and any of the folks that have the information to help do that as well. The last two things are going to be pretty quick because obviously we're not utilizing city facilities at this time, but shall be a day where we come back and meet in person. And so I just want to quickly go over with you a few of the things that I'm looking for boards and committees when they come and use the city's facilities. Obviously, when you're having a public meeting, we need to make sure that we're unlocking the doors and we're available to the public. So we're letting the public come in during the meeting and then locking the doors after we leave. And obviously your staff liaison would be doing that for you. But if for some reason you ever notice that the door is locked during your meeting, please let them know, because it might just be an accidental miss. Or if you go to leave and you notice the doors are still unlocked, please let them know and we can quickly get that locked. Obviously, safety is number one. Looking to make sure that, you know, the parking lot's safe. Most of the meetings are in the evening, so it gets dark, making sure that folks are looking out for one another, you know, watching their cars, making sure that if there's people attending your meeting, that they've left the building at the end of the meeting and they're not, you know, hanging out in the bathroom or something, but just, you know, just trying to really be aware, and safetyness, cleanliness, and then extra supplies. So making sure that when you're utilizing the city facility, that you're throwing away your garbage, that you're not leaving things behind. And if you are needing extra notepads or pens or something like that, please let your city liaison know, and we can definitely take care of some of that extra stuff for you. And then also the use of technology. So as we, you know, we use it right now, and then as we transition back into our in-person meetings, we obviously have a lot of amazing technology, and making sure that we're utilizing that, making sure that we're not there checking our email on the city's, you know, email computer. We're not going outside of things and goofing off during the meetings. We're utilizing it for all of the great, amazing things and that it offers, and we're utilizing it for the right reasons. So just kind of the basic, you know, double check stuff here. And then if there's any other additional questions, I'm here and available to answer those. Or if you don't feel free, or you think of it later, please feel free to email me and I can help with that too. I'm going to stop sharing and I'll take any questions.
I have one, Katie. Since we've been involved in Zoom meetings almost across the board, I know that CIC and some of the neighborhood associations prohibit voting electronically or telephonically. So is that a sticky wicket, or where do we stand with that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they would prohibit it, because it's allowed under the law. So.
Well, it's in their bylaws.
So maybe since you sit on some of those, you might be interested in revising some of that. It is allowed by under law. The Oregon law allows you to, you know, it's not necessarily, I guess it depends on what you mean by voting electronically. If you're pulling up an app on your phone and everyone is pressing a button on the phone at one time, is that considered electronically? Is sitting here in this virtual meeting and then saying your voting electronically? And same with like telephonic, because right now technically someone could be on the phone, someone could be on their computer audio. I personally wouldn't write it so restrictive in there, because there's so many variations of ways of doing it.
Well, I know that in the case of the CIC, obviously not with the neighborhood associations, because they're not entities of the city. But in the case of the CIC, those bylaws were reviewed by the city attorney.
And at that time, it might have been a thing that there might have been a situation with specifically the CIC where that needed to be exempt. Because I don't know that the CIC was allowing folks to participate via phone in their meetings.
They did.
I think they did. Okay, I thought they were only allowed to participate in person. And so if they're not allowed to participate by phone, then technically they shouldn't be allowed to vote by phone. So, I mean.
Yeah. Well, it was an isolated instance, and I won't bring it up now. So thank you.
Well, having been subject to this particular subject for the past 30 or 40 years, would it be fair to say that in order to be safe, you probably should regard anytime you're talking or discussing city stuff that it's going to potentially be on the public record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your meeting. Enjoy.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
So would the next item by any chance be the Public Works report?
It is. John, do you have things that you want to share? You want me to make you co-host?
If you could, that'd be awesome. Kim.
Yeah, I can do that.
So I'm going to go through the list of topics that are on the Public Works report, and then if you have other topics that you want me to try to address, I will try. For now, I'm going to share my screen, and I may have to go in and out of it just because I want to show a video too. So can everybody see this map of Park Place and Holcomb Boulevard?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
All right. So this was the first item, the Holcomb Boulevard speed limit, and it seems appropriate. This is one of those that we can check off the list, at least as far as I understand. It's was confirmed by staff today that the speed limit, first of all, the state approved a speed limit change for Holcomb Boulevard from 45 to 40. And so with that comes a lot of speed limit sign changes. So I'll just go through these. So at the bottom of the hill, going up the hill, there's a new 40-mile-per-hour sign, or we replaced that sign with a 35-mile. I said that wrong. So the speed limit got reduced from 40 to 35. So that 40-mile-per-hour sign has been replaced with a 35-mile-an-hour sign. These two signs that sit here were moved slightly down into this area and replaced with 35-mile-an-hour signs. There was a sign, an existing sign in the downhill direction here. We added a second sign in the uphill direction, and same with this area here. So there's more signage, and really kind of signage both up and down, even though the downhill seems to be most likely to exceed the speed limit. Uphill traffic will also see speed limit signs. And then as you come into town, there's a change there as well. And it's my understanding that all those have been installed, and they've got the orange flagging on them. I don't know that it's still there, but they did for a period of time. So those of you that drive that, did I see anything wrong? I actually, I was in Holcomb this weekend, but I don't remember the signage. So
it's in fact, I live up here. And I was wondering if I can get a voucher for my brake pads now. The car naturally wants to travel with no power at 40 miles an hour down that hill. So.
Actually, John, we had a Park Place Neighborhood Association meeting last night. I asked if anybody felt that the reduction in speed had been effective, and unanimously people felt it had been. So it has helped.
That's great. That's good. I hope it does. Went through a lot of effort there, and our next one, as you might recall, is Glen Oak Road. I don't have a slide for Glen Oak Road, so I'll just kind of talk about it. But the intent is to kind of go through the same process we went through here. We've kind of perfected that process. We might even get a little better with that and make sure all of our form work is submitted in ODOT's. They've got fillable PDFs now that they want a lot of the information in our application, so that they can just take that information and use it as they need to. And that might help accelerate some of their review time. So as far as the Glen Oak Road speed study, we haven't kicked that effort off yet, but it's our intent to do so. And if you remember, we started that with a community survey, and trying to get some public input and documented so that ODOT can see that we've reached out to the neighborhoods. And we did that for Holcomb. Again, kind of mixed results. Some people in Holcomb felt that the speed limit shouldn't be reduced. Some wanted it higher, others wanted it lower. It was kind of a mixed bag, but I think that there was more that wanted it lower than higher, and or wanted it more that wanted it lower than to remain the same. So we included all that information in the packet that we gave to ODOT, and at the end of the day, they approved the speed reduction. Any questions on Holcomb?
Or Glen Oak?
No, and your flags are still up there for noting this change of the speed limit.
Good. There's probably a timeline there, and 30 to 60 days, I imagine. I didn't get a specific date that they changed, but I want to say it's within the last 30 days.
Yeah, the biggest problem with the speeders is as when they are coming on Holcomb east of the city limits, these people are flying down the road there, because I live at the very edge of the city limits, and I choose a different route instead of coming off on Kitty Hawk, just because of the speed of the cars come flying up you on there. And so if the city really needs some revenue, that would be a very good spot to park. They will have lots of farmers to grab from, because that's where the speeders are coming from. It's not so much, I don't think, from the actual people living so much in the area, but it's the people who are coming from the rural area on there into the city limits.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tim, do you recall what the speed limit is out in the county area? Is it like 45 or something?
It's either 40 or 45, I think, as you go further.
So I was kind of concerned about tailgaters, but I haven't experienced that either.
Oh, you have to leave at 8:30, you'll find them.
Okay, well, I'm retired, so I don't get up there.
Between 7:30 and 8:30 is when you'll find the tailgaters.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a question. So I was going to propose, I don't know about this through ODOT, is the speed limit coming down to 213 right there where you do the Redlands Road there. Is there any way about maybe having them reduce the speed there as they get into the congested area between Redlands Road and the Chevron station area? At the past the Chevron, it turns down from 55 to 45, but people are flying down 213, and then you start getting into the traffic lights there. Has anybody ever discussed the change of a speed limit in that area?
I don't recall any discussion of that at the city level. It is a state facility, so I would say if there was an interest in that, best way to pursue that would be through the state.
John, isn't the urban growth boundary still at Henrici in that area? Which would logically put the area he's talking about outside of the city concern.
I'm not remembering. See this line, this dotted line right here?
Mm-hmm.
That's city limit. So yeah, it looks like, a lot of the area that's really between here and Beaver Creek Road is county. A lot of the metro property is county. So the city limit line kind of drops into the canyon there in Newell Canyon. So yeah, this is all outside the city.
What about the area just to the north of that, just above your 40? So you're coming out right here, boom, right there. That's Redlands Road exit right there. That's where the traffic light is. I'm talking about from that point down to the on-ramp of the 205.
That is in the city. It's still an ODOT facility. But yeah, that is inside the city.
So that'd be something we would coordinate with ODOT on doing a traffic study on that?
They would do all the work on that. We wouldn't necessarily coordinate. And I don't know if they have a different process when it's not a neighborhood street, when it's more of a highway.
That's because it's interesting how it could, I don't have a problem with it 55 down, going to the south. But when you get to this part right here where the first traffic light's at, this is a very congested area of a lot of traffic going in there. Everybody's working their way around and getting on the Prairie Schooner and Home Depot and, cutting in that way and then going along Columbia Road or Clackamas Road there. And it's funny that all of a sudden, once you get past the gas station there, then they drop the speed to 45. Like, why? Why do you have it 55 and there's a traffic light that everybody runs that are turning right there? I mean, I drive this every morning, and I tell you, I can make my daily quota just sitting there waiting for that traffic, because the light lets me come out on 213 to head to head northbound. And I always have to stop at the first traffic light. It's just the way they're timed. And you'll sit there and you'll watch all the cars and the trucks and everything come right along that intersection there. And there'll be 2 and 3 cars running blatantly a red light there every morning.
You mean it Prairie Schooner Way or where Clackamas River Drive comes up there? Is that the red light?
No, so where the gas station is, the Chevron station there's the on-ramps when you want to go northbound. It's a double turn lane there. And you'll have this feed of cars coming through there every morning, and there'll be 2 and 3 cars that'll pass right through it. When you got a green light here to go, there's cars continuing in trucks. Trucks are the biggest offenders, and construction people with trailers behind them. I mean, I can show you video cams on my car of the number of prospects that will run that light there.
And the light we're talking about is the on-ramp on the I-205 or?
No, it's the on-ramp. It's the, can you enlarge the screen a little bit so we can see what that street is there?
It's where Clackamas
Right here?
River Road connects up to 213.
Yep.
So the cars that are running the light are on Clackamas River Drive, or are you saying
they're coming on the right here on Clackamas River Drive, coming onto the 213 to go south, or excuse me, to go northbound, to get either on the north or the southbound lane of the freeway?
Because they're not, I mean, it's signed for no right on red.
Yeah, but they turn right on red when the light is not even orange. It's red.
What happens is they're approaching a green light and it turns red and they just keep going.
Yep.
And that's not just during rush hour. That's all day long. I've seen it there time and time again. I wonder there aren't more accidents.
Yeah, and the problem is you got people driving 55 miles an hour up to that traffic light.
Yeah. Everybody knows you can make a right on red, and nobody reads signs.
Except when there's signed no turn on red, which is the case there.
But people don't read signs.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I stand corrected, Henry.
Well, so I'm not sure now if the problem is enforcement of the no right on red or the speed, but sounds like both.
Mm-hmm.
The no right on, I mean, well, the Oregon City Police can patrol either the speed limit on, in fact, they do on Highway 213. But it sounds like maybe they're not speeding, maybe they're obeying the speed limit. We just think it's too fast on 213. And I'm assuming that's northbound, not southbound.
So they're going northbound. It's not that people are running the light on 213 going north. It's the people on
Clackamas River
Drive that are making the right turn on red, and it's like they're continuing. The light turns green for the northbound traffic, and these people are still continuing to keep rotating through the intersection there. And then as you pass there a little ways, then it turns to 45. So it really doesn't make sense why the road is 55 all the way down to past that light when you have two major traffic lights, that are controlling traffic in there. They do have them timed pretty well. I mean, they do sync, because if you come out on Redlands Road to make a left, you will not be able to communicate. You will not be able to go past Perry Schooner and Columbia River Drive without stopping at that light. It's very rare that you'll get a green light all the way through there. So, and you got these trucks and cars and just barreling down there at 55 and going through these two major traffic lights there. And then the other problem is coming on the 205, coming on to 213 southbound. There really needs to be some kind of a safety corridor in there, because you have people that come off of the other side of when they're on the southbound of 205 and they're doing the loop, they tend to crowd you out trying to get off at the first exit to hit to go to the Home Depot and everybody else there. And they really need to have some kind of like those little rubber cones that kind of stick up to give the people a safety lane, because between that and then all the garbage that people lose as they try to go to the transfer station. I literally a couple months ago, I came home at night and there was a wash machine sitting on the corner there. Right there against the medium, and some car crashed into that concrete barrier there and took a chunk out of it, and there was a wash machine there. So,
I've been using the 213 as a downhill going north as a way to get back from the shopping area up on top of the hill. And what I'm seeing during the daytime is that on the section from Beaver Creek Road to Redland Road, the average speed seems to be around 70. And then when they come down to the light that Tim is talking about at Clackamas River Drive, it's more like a sprint to get onto 205 going north at the best possible time and ahead of the best of everybody who's in around them. So that seems to be the type of problem that I think we're seeing there as far as the traffic on 213 by itself is.
yeah, Oregon City Police they do stings along there, and I'm sure they have lots of prospects. And there's certain spots there, even, traffic monitoring, even going up the hill, going southbound. And there's a few spots in there, but since COVID, it seems like the speed has increased along there more than it was in the past.
Yeah. Well, the tree cutting stuff has pretty much controlled the uphill traffic right now.
Oh, up there. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I've noticed in the morning, the traffic's all backed up there. So that's,
but when they're out there working all day long, it's backed up onto 205.
Yeah, well, as you see 205 by Westland, that's another one in the morning.
Yeah, I know that one too.
I'm sorry, I
Moving on.
Cut into your production about Holcomb Boulevard, but while you were driving down that road, I thought I couldn't miss throwing in a little speed adjustment in there.
So Tim, do you see an advantage to taking the lead as a citizen on that and reaching out to ODOT, or are you suggest?
I'll be happy to do it. I just need to know who I need to talk to, because Don Hamilton's hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but with regard to ODOT speed, so I guess we'll look into that and we'll give you an email.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, I'm sure if they put a radar speed thing there, they'd be surprised what the numbers are coming down there, that traffic light. It might even break the meter.
Okay.
Next item on the report, please.
So I know this map is small. Just a reminder, we produce something like this every year for the Trail News. So this will be in, I think, the April edition of the Trail News. So it'll be available there. And I kind of wanted to go through it. This covers a variety of topics, including the pavement maintenance topic and the rapid flashing beacon topic. So I thought maybe I'd just kind of go through the map with you and our abundant listening audience. So we'll do that. We do this because it's the summer construction project. So we've got in red lines, we're showing where we're planning to do either slurry seal or chip seal. Now, just yesterday, we got some, I think it was yesterday, we got bids on the chip seal, and they were quite a bit more than we had intended. So we're going to try and see how much of that we can actually afford to do. But there's quite a few streets that I think we were wanting to do using a heavier chip seal as opposed to a slurry seal. So usually when a lot of people are familiar with chip seals, didn't used to do them in urban areas as much, but now we lay down the chips and then come right behind it with what we call a fog seal, and it locks those chips in much more tightly. So it's a tool that we've used around Oregon City from time to time, and a lot of people, it is kind of a rougher finish, but depending on the road, it makes a lot of sense. So that's what we're showing in red. And purple, we're showing what we're planning to do in terms of some patchwork using Vance's staff to mill and pave and deal with ruts and things like that. And these are at least what they plan to do. There's probably others that they'll get to as well, but this is kind of what they had mapped out for this summer. Then in the green, we've got what we call pavement reconstruction projects. Those are projects that are not just a kind of a surface sealer. It's more of a removal or an overlay of the asphalt. And often there's ADA ramp repairs if they need the repairs associated with that work. So that's what's shown in green. And then in blue, we're just showing a variety of different kinds of capital improvement projects. The Rivercrest neighborhood I'm jumping around here, so I'll go back to the list. 5th Street, there's just a short section of 5th Street between High and Center Street that we're wanting to take care of, and in the process, do some repaving along there. So water and stormwater improvements along there. Gaffney Lane, if you drive Gaffney Lane, it's currently under construction. I know they finished the sewer. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I bet you they're getting pretty close to getting ready to pave on that. And so they're extending the sidewalk through there. There was a gap in the sidewalk and really a kind of a narrow street section through there. So we'll be fixing that and adding a crosswalk. Item 6, there's a few item 6s out here. There's just an assortment of small waterline projects that we're taking on over the summer using our water fund. Malala Avenue, I've got another slide on that one, but that's still going to be under construction throughout the summer. And then the pedestrian activated rapid flashing beacons, the ones we've talked a lot about are on Holcomb, the 2 there. And then we just bid one on Glen Avenue, and we're going to reject the one bid that we got. It was just significantly higher than what we anticipated that to be. So we're hoping that's not a trend. We'll see. We're going to lump that one together with these 2 and bid it a little bit later in May. Really, we spent some funding on engineering fees for that rapid flashing beacon and bid it out. I don't know if you remember, but in our transportation system plan, we've been talking about, rapid flashing beacons costing around $35,000. Well, that's definitely not the case anymore. The bid was, I think, $124,000 for that one rapid flashing beacon, and that doesn't include our design fees. So, and we only got one bidder on it. So we're hoping we're a little more, we get a little luckier and are able to get all 3 of those accomplished this year. But like I said, we'll be I think the plans for Lynn are obviously done and ready to go. We'll have to reassemble those with the plans that are kind of coming together for Holcomb. I think I saw 90% plans come through the office a couple of weeks ago, so they're getting ready to be assembled for a bid package in May. Sewer rehab. If you live in the Rivercrest neighborhood or that area, we're planning to do quite a sewer rehab project in there. That's what's shown in number 10. I skipped over number 9. There's a couple of smaller projects on Washington and 99E that we're also going to bid in a kind of a separate package. But those smaller projects are problematic pipes that need some rehab. This area appears more of a comprehensive kind of neighborhood wide. Well, we've done the evaluation work. We're building the construction documents now. And then Trillium, if you're remembering Trillium, there's a landslide behind the hospital on Trillium Park Drive. First phase of that project is to move the sewer out from under the slide area. So that is currently out for bid. And what will follow that, probably not this summer, but at some point, we budgeted for it for next year, will be reconstruction of that street. If you remember, we went with a single lane repair using, it's kind of an interesting project, one that we haven't tried in Oregon City before, but using the low unit weight backfill material so that we're not overloading the landslide area. And then lots of development projects that are shown here. I don't know all the details of all of those, but quite a few little areas that are under construction or going to be under construction. So let's see, what else I want to say about this. We talked about the PMUF projects. We talked about the rapid flashing beacons. This line item also talked about budgeting, and I didn't want to go into budget too much. For one, we still haven't landed on a completed budget, but we're working on it. And the other thing I wanted to mention was the City Commission has added a goal that involves the Transportation Advisory Committee. The goal reads right now and the goals are draft as well, but I think it affects budget because it's prioritization of projects in the Transportation Master Plan to maximize safety and connectivity. So that means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but in time to, in thinking about that, I was kind of tasked with what kind of approach does that look like? So I'm going to read to you the blurb that I put together for that and just kind of give you a sense of what I'm thinking. It's kind of open for debate, but and maybe the commission may direct that further. I'm not sure, but here's what I think is a good proposed approach. This would be a table talk exercise completed together with our established community interest groups, the Transportation Advisory Committee, kind of leading that, CIC, neighborhood leadership, police, business interest groups, TriMet, and Metro. We would also include outreach to the working groups established by the Planning Department for the OC 2040 comprehensive plan update process, with an emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that DEI term that you asked about, Bob.
Cool. I'm excited.
Really, I wouldn't anticipate new transportation data collected. For this project, it'd be using the data that we have. City has a TSP, we have concept plans, we have a budget, we have a 5-year paving plan, we've got capital improvement plans, we've got all these filters, if you will, different layers of things that I think that need to be considered when we think about project expenditures. And the filter, obviously, of safety and connectivity. I think we apply that pretty regularly, but getting some confirmation of that with the community would be good. In some of our planning documents, we include prioritization, which can be reevaluated in the context of multiple perspectives. The final plan outcomes will be constrained by our limited funds. So unless we're pursuing additional funds, or unless we see some federal funding play out, you know, it's not like we've got a lot of money to spend on these kind of projects, but we have some. But all the more reason to kind of work together with the community through public engagement to better understand what would be the most important transportation projects or programs to meet the community expectations. I think the effort could be scalable depending on, you know, funding. It's a good opportunity to re-educate those who just think, just go build another lane on Highway 213. We've got traffic congestion up there. We need to build another through lane or whatever it is that people would like or think should be built. So it'd be a good opportunity to educate people there. You know, depending on where we are, I'm suggesting this program starts probably even before this budget year is over. So we may have public meetings in the old-fashioned way, face-to-face meetings, or they may be virtual meetings. So I anticipate kind of some polling, definitely lots of mapping, affirmation of the transportation system vision and goals and evaluation criteria. We've been through this kind of before with the transportation system plan. So I suspect a lot of that will be able to either say, yeah, we like what we had, we just forgot about it, or no, that was flawed and we need to fix that. So I envision an effort that staff will lead, but co-sponsored by the Transportation Advisory Committee. There may be some consultant time depending on the expectations there. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Again, I think it's a scalable process and we budgeted some money for it, not a lot of money, but I think the commission thinks it's important to engage the community again in that many folks don't remember the transportation system plan or that planning process. So,
John?
Yes.
I have a comment that's worth, maybe 10, 15 cents, but would it be reasonable to take this and split it into long-term and near-term projects? Long-term being, say, 15, 20, 30 years, short-term being the next 10, and so that there'd be some division between what might be achievable in the short run and what might need to be worked toward in the long run?
Yes, I think that's a good point, Henry. I mean, and we might even take that a little further. I mean, we've got a 2-year budget, so there's that planning horizon. We've been talking about a 6-year capital improvement plan, so there's that horizon. And then obviously, you know, the full build out of the transportation system plan is probably more like a 20-year horizon. So yeah, I think that there's at least reviewing what we, again, proposed in the transportation system plan. We did just that in the transportation system plan. So it would be, you know, I think good to revisit those.
Yeah. I'm sort of visualizing something that would show that we have some long-term goals that we're trying to orient projects toward, and not just throwing stuff left and right and not really thinking about what might need to be rebuilt in the future. If you sort of,
I have a question. I hate to micromanage, but I'm going to anyway.
okay.
Looking at your map, it appears up near Holcomb School that there's in the red, the slurry chip seal projects. Up on item
Right there.
Right there, yeah, that area there. It seems to me like those streets are only about 3 years old. Isn't that new development there?
No, that's a little bit older. You're thinking of a little bit farther to the right.
Yeah, I'd have to check on that, Bob, but you know, Vance and Jason, I think, put together the list of slurry seal projects. So I haven't studied those. But you know, they may be older than you think. And keep in mind, slurry seal is often, you know, or they may not be wearing very well despite their age. I don't know. Haven't been up there.
Yeah, okay. Just
Is there a cost factor you guys use to budget, like for paving for one lane for every 500 or 1,000 feet that you're looking at before you go out to bid?
There are cost estimates associated with these projects. I would say they vary greatly depending on the kind of work and the kind of traffic and the kind of neighborhood impacts. So yes, we have cost estimates. Each project usually has a cost estimate associated with it. Sometimes the in-house projects that we bid or do kind of the planning for, I would say our estimates follow pretty much what maybe we paid in the past. And sometimes the market drives that a little differently for us. But yeah, we have cost estimates. We also have a pavement maintenance system, which uses unit price numbers to say what your overall city liability is for pavement needs. So it'll give you a kind of the long-term, you know, how many millions you should spend over the next 20 years on pavement maintenance. But Ray, I see your hand up.
Yes, I have a question regarding the connectivity and safety analysis. It sounds like pretty mapping intensive. Is a bicycle and pedestrian level of traffic stress analysis the citywide is being, is that part within budget, or is it, because I've already done it for downtown, or at least a draft of it, and I'd like to bring that citywide, and I'm curious whether that's within the budget of what you're talking about.
Well, I think we're going to look at all modes. But Ray, you've probably got a much different idea in mind than what I do. I think a lot of it's got to do with, you know, are we going to focus on key boulevards or key neighborhoods, or, you know, a specific development standard that, you know, changes maybe what our expectations are for certain areas. But, you know, I don't envision us doing a lot of analysis of that, and or, you know, that for that matter, pedestrian connectivity. I think we know a lot based on what we've got in the TSP. We've identified a lot of bike routes. We've identified a lot of pedestrian ways. We've identified a lot of what we call family-friendly streets. Mm-hmm. So it'd be kind of looking at those and saying, well, did we hit that right? Is that, we're doing a little bit of this work in a future slide that I have in the Park Place neighborhood urbanization study, where I don't know, I look at some of the routes and some of the decisions that were made in the TSP, and I kind of question whether that's really what we're going to be able to build given what's there existing. So I think just maybe taking a deeper dive on some of those areas and kind of looking at the reality of, can you really make you know, the kind of bike lane you might choose to have if you're building a new boulevard like Myers Road versus trying to squeeze it into an existing boulevard like Apperson, for instance, you know, which really has got existing curbs and sidewalks along most of that alignment. So if you really want to accommodate bikes safely, how do you do that? What does that standard look like? Tim, I see your hand up.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a quick question, and that is, when is the Malala project going to be done?
I've got a slide for that, but that's okay. We can, because I don't have much more in a picture for that, but we're still telling folks the end of 2021. I hope sooner, but that's still our public end date. Any other questions? I can't see any other hands raised before I move on.
Please do.
So I mentioned this Park Place, I don't have the title up here, but the Park Place Urbanization Study. Josh Wheeler's been kind of spearheading this. We tried to get a grant to do it. We didn't get a grant, so we're trying to figure out what we can do internally. We've hired Wallace Engineering to help us with that. I think there's been at least one neighborhood meeting. Bob, I was looking, do you know, has there been 2 meetings on this? I think that there's an upcoming meeting at the end of the month or 1st of April. Does that sound right to you?
They already presented to us
Once or twice?
once.
Yeah. So I think that's what Josh was gone today. So I'm just trying to pull that information out of the project file, but it looked to me like we're doing a meeting probably late March or sometime in April. But it's really kind of doing a deeper dive on what's an existing neighborhood and trying to figure out how to help with the walkability and make some determinations about where maybe there's sidewalk gaps that maybe need to be filled, or maybe simpler stuff like where you've got mailboxes in the middle of an existing sidewalk where a pedestrian really kind of can get around it unless they're, they've got accessibility needs. So it might be cleaning some of those kind of things up, just dealing with, identifying trails, things that maybe future development might be required to build. So trying to get a plan that better moves all modes of traffic, whether it be transit or walkers or bicyclists or drivers. So it's not an easy lift. And when I look at Park Place, I think we've got quite a variety of new development and very, very old development and streets that meet kind of what you might typically see in a residential street, typical Oregon City residential street standard, to something that looks more like 16 feet of pavement. So really, trying to get to a place right now, if a development happens, we apply our city standards, which may not be conducive to the area that's developing. And so when we get in those situations, we find ourselves, kind of subjectively making decisions about that. And I'd like to get away from that as much as we can. And this neighborhood has lots of that going on. So, that project, really, the goals are to identify the problems. Where should we build solutions? What should we build? What will it cost? And what should we do first? So prioritization of that. So I think that's a good project. I'm a little worried about the timeline. It moves pretty quick. But I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in that neighborhood that might make it a few of which, if we could get accomplished or get identified, either when development happens, they could be accomplished, or maybe there is a capital improvement project that could be delivered. And here's the timeline. I think trying to get through a final report. And I think this is a little aggressive, but we'll do our best. So right now, Josh is projecting end of May. I think that may go a little further, and then try and get that adopted through the Planning and City Commission. Any questions on the Park Place plan?
Is there a chance that we'll be able to see the finished product before planning does?
I'd like to get it back to TAC really in this kind of phase right here. So yes, soon. And this might have something to do with what Ray was talking about, but just dealing with sidewalk seating and parklets and outdoor dining in parking lots has been a topic for the commission as they're trying to help with the COVID-19 recovery assistance program. I'm not going to go too deep into this. There's been a lot of commission discussions on this, but we're looking at a variety of things that both allow safe pedestrian access and active use of these sidewalks. And by doing that, we're looking at parklets. I think if you get around at all, we've got a couple of them in Oregon City now, but we weren't obviously the first. There's been lots of them around. So I don't know if you have an opinion of what that looks like in Oregon City. I think in other jurisdictions, they've got some really great ones. I've seen some really bad ones, but hopefully we won't end up with any of the really bad ones, and we'll focus on parklets that work. But the commission's been considering, material types, how many are allowed, how much of the kind of, what the coverings look like in terms of materiality. Should they be enclosed or not enclosed? And I imagine by the time all the COVID restrictions will be lifted, we'll have a perfect standard, and then people will be back inside restaurants. But any questions about parklets? There's going to be, they'll be discussed. This topic is on the commission agenda for tomorrow. So if you want more information, that's probably the right place to get it.
From what I've seen of the ones that I'm around, it looks to me like maintenance is sort of going to be the main concern. Just keeping them neat looking and clean.
Some of you have heard about the Oregon City Westland Pedestrian Bicycle Bridge concept plan. This project is also going to be on the commission agenda tomorrow, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'm going to show you a video if I can. I may have to stop sharing and reshare. The project is looking at different alignments for a pedestrian and bicycle bridge that would cross from Oregon City to Westland. And I think it's an interesting project. It just, it's got some controversy associated with it as well. So let's see if I can't do this without closing things down. Does that map happen to show up on your screen?
No.
Or is it the same thing?
Same
Okay.
thing.
Let me see if I can't.
We're looking at the building, it needs to be painted.
Oh, okay, let me try to get back to.
Quick question about the parklet program. I saw the word temporary. Is the commission discussing about making that permanent after COVID, or is it only looking at being temporary? I don't know if you heard that question or not.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Let's see. We should be near the end of the agenda, aren't we?
We're near the end. It's just a lot of things on the public works report.
Well, he's coming back, I see.
Yeah.
Kim, if I can ask a question while we're sort of waiting here, do we still have a vacancy on the board?
I believe we have. I believe we have two. Because we currently, let me look at the roster.
Well, I want to thank Savannah for staying with us.
I was going to note that too. Thank you.
Of course, I live in the city. I want to be invested in the city.
Maybe she should make an application.
There you go. That's an idea. We need a lady on our committee.
We do, for a fact.
Yeah, we currently have two. We have the chamber and we need another neighborhood association member.
Definitely. I applied because I came from Canby, but I applied to be on the transit committee there, but I since moved to Oregon City end of 2020. So that's definitely something I'll look into.
Okay, John, you back?
Yeah, I think so.
You got lost in cyberspace.
I know, sorry. Can you see the one
Yes.
falls?
Yep. Got it now.
So this is a video, but I'm gonna, and it doesn't have sound, so I'm hoping it will play and you will see it on your screen like I'm gonna see it on my screen. Just know that there's been a lot of discussion about bridge crossings. This is gonna be discussed tomorrow, so I wanna remind you of that. There'll be a commission update tomorrow, and then there's also going to be a virtual open house on March 29th through April 13th. So virtual open house means that you go online and watch probably something like this video and some other things and be able to provide other feedback. But this picture represents some concepts and some proposed projects, both, you know, the bridge projects, but also the development on either side of the river. And then on the Westland side, there's a couple of roundabouts and changes to Willamette Falls Drive that you may have seen before or may not have seen. I don't recall if I'm sure them, but they've been around for a little while. So I think they show this one here. It definitely shows up in a lot of the ODOT work on the I-205 project. So this is Willamette River Drive and out of Westland. So you come under the 205 bridge. They're proposing a roundabout here, and then later roundabout that would be here. And right now, Clackamas River or Willamette Falls Drive comes down and ties into this intersection right here where the service station is. So the service station would go away, and they'd have a new configuration with the Oregon City Westland leg of that in there. And then this new Willamette Falls Drive that would front new development that, you know, would occur on the Westland side. And then of course they're showing the Oregon City side here. And they had, I've kind of forgotten the number of alignments that they've looked at, but there's been 7 main alignments, and then there's, you know, 1A, B, and C, and 2A and B, and 4A. I think there's 4A, B, C, D, and maybe E. And then there's alignment 6, which I think there's only one of, and then there's alignment 7, A, and B. So quite a few different alignments and ending points and landing points on either side of the bridge. These bridges would not be for vehicle traffic, they would be for pedestrian and bike traffic. So I'm just gonna play this. I don't really have all the answers. I guess you guys are the first public to see this as far as I know. I think they've shown it to the technical committee. I'm assuming they're gonna show it to the city commission tomorrow night, but it's top secret information. So it cannot leave this public meeting. So anyway, if they didn't want me to share it, then they shouldn't have shown it to me. How's that? So here you go. And let's see if this works. And hopefully, is it working on your end? Are you seeing it?
It is.
It's
This is-
moving.
Is there sound or?
There's no sound
Okay.
on it that I know of anyway. I tried to get sound to come on and it didn't, but this is kind of a flyover that's going to show you kind of a flyover of each of the alignments, which I think is super cool, whether you agree with the projects or not. They're going to show you each alignment here, and some of the switchbacks on the Oregon City side are just to deal with the grade change, because they still want to maintain a 5% grade across the river. And so at the Oregon City side, they really kind of have to do some switchbacks to make that happen. This one lands on Moore Island, which is does some grade transitioning there. And then they're going to come around and swing around and actually give you a river level view. Keep in mind, all the buildings are conceptual. It's really just trying to give you a perspective of what these bridges could look like and still maintain a navigable waterway. So I don't know what technology they're using here, but it's cool stuff, I think. What some of the bridge concepts could look like for that one, obviously they tried to mirror the existing bridge. These are a little different. What they told me was that the bridges are relatively similar in cost because of the longer spans for some, and the arch bridge is obviously more of a historic looking bridge. But do we want to do that again, or do you?
Well, that's a real interesting concept. There's one thing missing that Tim West should have seen. Did you catch it, Tim?
What's that?
Missing from that
On the freeway.
presentation?
This is where we come down.
There's no fishermen on the river.
This is the difference.
John, my question is on those roundabouts. The one on the right, what would it accomplish?
That would accomplish right now what's kind of an awkward intersection, and it deals with both the on-ramp. It deals with the elimination of, so like currently, if you're heading towards Westland from Oregon City and you want to get on 205 northbound, right? You go over the bridge, you get on the Willamette River Drive, and you can merge. You can take the right hand on ramp and get onto 205 northbound, right? Well, that on ramp is going to go away in the future build of the bridge. So this gives that person who wants to get onto 205 northbound that option, whether they're coming from Oregon City, which seems a little odd because they'd probably get on 99E, but more likely if they're coming from Willamette Falls Drive, they would have that option. That makes sense?
Mhm.
There's a fair amount of people that come up from Canby that use that route. Because you miss a few stoplights if you go that way around rather than going right on up McLaughlin.
I mean, there's a lot of congestion in that area, so these would solve a lot of congestion problems as well, Bob.
Okay.
All right, is that good enough?
Mhm.
Or do you want to see it again?
Well, I think that was good enough. Let's move on.
Okay.
I do have a
No.
question about the previous
Close to quitting
topic.
time.
Just on the parklets, is the commission looking at that being only temporary this time, or have they been discussing making it permanent after COVID's over? I don't know if that's been discussed yet.
They have not.
Okay, I'll keep following it then. Thank you.
John, my question is in regards to the bike path and the bike bridge right there. Two quick things. One is, what is the estimated cost of those bridges? Do you know?
I don't know.
All right. Okay. And then two is, have they established a need? I know that they've got to, by law, to go ahead and investigate a bike path, pedestrian path, because they couldn't put it on 205. But is there a need for that? Because I don't see the volume of bikers and peds to require a $100 million bridge.
Those are good questions. I know that question has been asked. So my sense is that that team of consultants is answering that.
I guess I just wanted to clarify one thing, that the I-205 bridge project that you're referring to, how with the bike bill and requiring ODOT to do this other bike ped bridge, they actually, with the lawsuit, and ODOT said they were not required to follow the bike bill for this. And so I just want to clarify that ODOT's already stated that they are not doing this new bike ped bridge because of how it was not included in I-205 widening project. And so I just want to clarify that that has already been resolved through legal matters.
Okay. Question was asked about Malala Avenue. This is just a traffic cam picture from our Beaver Creek camera. Had Dana pull this off today. So obviously all the traffic's moved on to the east side of Malala Avenue, and we're working mostly on the other end down near Biscuits and the OC Point with lots of work. Most of the utility poles have been moved out of the way now, and all the utility lines are hanging on the new poles. So that was like a year-long effort to get that to happen. And they're really working their way north. And so lots of continued disruption. All the businesses are open and trying to remain open. So please frequent those businesses. Traffic continues to move surprisingly well through the four-way stops along Claremont and Gaffney and First Street. But we're starting to see, all this sidewalk will be replaced. There'll be slight alignment changes and locations of where that sidewalk is. But really, again, they're starting down on the southerly end of that. So again, the project timeline is still anticipated to be end of the year. I hope it's earlier than the end of the year because I don't want to be in the Halloween, Thanksgiving paving time of year. That just doesn't work well for anybody. So I hope we're ahead of schedule. Any questions about that?
Now, what are they all doing on this? Is it all new sewer and water lines, or?
A lot of the main utility was a brand new water transmission main that ran from one end to the other. But there's also replacement of mostly or addition of stormwater improvements. This is an old state highway, so had a lot of problems with the stormwater system and really inadequate catch basins. So a lot of catch basin and storm drainage work as well. And then beyond the transmission main, really pretty much between Beaver Creek Road and I want to say First Street, we had, or maybe not, maybe it didn't go, I think it stopped just north of Gaffney, some new quote distribution mains, water mains. So in this case, the transmission main is trying to move water in a bigger way south.
I don't know if you run into any unexpected, especially difficult situations. I know up on Lynn Avenue, when they did that, you ran into some problems with trying to move boulders that wouldn't break up and they just kept moving on you.
Yeah, I mean, we did have some pretty big boulders down near First Street that weren't expected. The biggest problem has been, trying to work in a zone that carries as much traffic as this corridor carries. That's been our biggest problem. And trying to move pedestrians across the mile-long corridor where you're into a construction zone, that's been difficult. And to do that safely and consistently and, to keep, temporary measures in place that tend to move in the wind and, people tend to move them around just to be like that. So that's been a challenge for us, but for the most part, the project's moving forward. We haven't had really big scope changes.
Yeah, someone who walks this area, thanks for considering pedestrian access. Because I can see how challenging it is. I do have a question with the ice. Did the ice storm impact the project at all with timeline, or are things proceeding on schedule even though we had an ice storm?
It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of the day, the contractor would ask for a time extension due to the ice storm and probably be warranted that. Same with like the fire, and they shut down during a lot of the smoke. So all of our contractors that have worked through the COVID, the smoke, and the ice storm are all kind of, hinting that they need those extra days to deal with those things in case they get to the end of their contract and they've still got work to do. They wouldn't want to be charged or assessed what we call liquidated damages. So I think they all kind of have that in mind, and I think a lot of it's justified. All right, I'm gonna keep going. I think I've only got a couple more. Just checking in again. We already talked about the rapid flashing beacons. Those are on track for bidding in May, and they're still in the locations that we committed to placing them. The Union Pacific Railroad Bridge at 12th Street is under construction. That bridge is going to be replaced. Unfortunately, the clearance problem we have there doesn't get remedied because they really couldn't go up with it, and we couldn't go down with the road. So it'll be a new bridge. It'll be a much better looking bridge, probably much more structurally sound. We're still going to have kind of a low crossing area, but that project is scheduled to be completed May 25th. They've got the road closed. I think in the early part of May, I thought I saw on the schedule May 2nd, they're going to, they want to work 24 hours straight and bring in the bridge girders and rebuild and reopen that. So the rail in Oregon City will be closed for 24 hours until they get that back in place. So that's their plan, and we're trying to help them through that. And that's it for me.
Is there any other things, if any future items, any comments, anything for the good of the order?
I have one item for John. John, you're scheduled to be at the CIC meeting on April 5th. And I'm going to give you extra time this time around, a half hour to 45 minutes, because you'll have a lot to tell us about the public works efforts during the storm or after the storm.
You let me know what you want to hear about, Bob, and we'll take it on.
I'll get you an email because I just marked those things that you just talked about. Some of them I would like on the CIC. I'll be in touch with you. Thanks.
Yeah, Vance he's been leading the charge on that cleanup effort, and I don't know if you get out much, but I tend to like to see how we're doing compared to others. So I get out a fair amount, and I really feel like Oregon City's rallied around that program. And by the way, I'll just do a shout out. The Oregon City Optimist Club and the city are sponsoring a cleanup day on Saturday. And I think I heard we had something like 15 folks call for needs, and I think we're maybe about 10% of that for volunteers. So if you know anybody with a pickup truck, and we're not doing any saw work, we're going to be partnering with, like, I think the wrestling team and I'm trying to think. The young cadets, what are they called?
ROTC.
ROTC. Thank you for that, and a couple other groups. So we're trying to keep it safe, but a lot of road, curbside debris from people who need help. So if you know anybody like that, or you want to volunteer, you can still register for that. So that's Saturday, and then Vance's crew and some volunteers, I think other volunteers from the city are, or I think other city staff are going to be, we're going to open up the Cove tree debris dump site on Friday, the 19th, Saturday, the 20th, and Sunday, the 21st. So Vance reported to me earlier today, pretty big numbers on not only were those piles massive. I don't know if any of you had a chance to visit the Cove site, but we had a site up at community college for the first day or so. It filled up in like a day and a half, and then so we closed that one down, and then we moved to the Cove, and that was massive. And we had a big tub grinder there, and I don't know, Vance, do you remember how many loads B&B Leasing hauled for us of chipped debris?
Yeah, we generated 4,800 cubic yards of chips.
Oh,
And
my.
yeah, so B&B Leasing got to work out with their trucks and dumpsters. We've still got, that's how much we've generated. We haven't hauled that much. We've still got approximately 1,500 to 2,000 cubic yards still at the Cove, ready to be hauled off. To put that in perspective, so that's chipped, right? And when you load a dumpster with chips, you if it's a 40-yard dumpster, you get 40 cubic yards. The loose tree debris, when we get it off the streets and it's just in big piles, it's roughly a factor of 4.5 to 5. So basically, if you take 4,800 cubic yards of chips, you're talking 21,600 cubic yards of loose tree debris and limbs in huge piles. So that's a lot. That's a lot. It's been quite an effort.
I'd just like to say, and I'll follow Katie's guidance here, I'm speaking not as a member of the TAC, not a member of the CIC, but as strictly a private citizen. You guys have done a yeoman's job. Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's appreciated, certainly.
Yes, I used it several times and they were all good people and it was a great thing.
Yep.
Good.
Took several loads down there myself, so thank you again.
Oh, that's great to hear. Good.
Anyway, Ray's been waiting patiently.
I just have hopefully a future agenda item with our goals, because I don't think we ever create our TAC goals for the year. And it sounds like now the city commission at least has draft goals. So I guess maybe they'll have their final goals next month, I guess. And so I'm curious when we want to finalize our TAC goals for the year, because I think, correlating the commission goals with our goals. So that's my agenda item for future agenda.
So, I think I'm glad we waited for one. I think this project with regard to reprioritization or verifying our existing priorities is a kind of a big ask. That combined with all the other folks who want to get on the TAC agenda to present and our own kind of project accomplishments, it seems like, we need to do that, Ray and Henry. And let's see, is Chedmer still, is he our co-chair or chair, or where do we end up with that, Henry? I forgot.
Which one? What?
Chedmer.
Yeah, he's co-chair.
There we go. So he's probably got a long list of ideas too.
Well, I could probably generate a long list, but I don't know that that'd be a big help. We probably need a shorter list.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Henry. We got a lot on our plate.
Yeah.
So
Anything else? We're 2 minutes over. Okay. I'm going to say we stand adjourned. This meeting is over and closed and done with. Thank you all for coming. Thank
Good night,
you,
everybody.
Savannah, for your presentation.
Thanks, Savannah, for staying for the whole meeting.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you,
Thank you for
everyone.
that.
Yeah.